We're back. Attempt number 2. Not really attempt number 2, it's more like attempt number 1 with a brand new combo yet again. So again, if you're new here, let me get you caught up to speed. I am a perennial destroyer of turbo motors. I've committed my last sin for now, and I've removed the turbo completely from the car. This is like combo 9 in the last 3 years. We're on an NA LS3 415, supposedly makes 750 horse, yet to be determined. So after last week's outing with the turbo motor and yeeted a couple head gaskets, we wholesaled it. I pulled this out of Dad's car. His dad was having some trouble with his car. He wasn't happy with it. So I said, give me your motor. We'll use my car, your motor. Let's see if we can have one successful automobile. So this is the Shafroth 415 deal from his car. It's supposed to be 750 horse, 6.2 block, aluminum block, blah, 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 and a carbonator. So we kept the Holly. Other than the Holly and the transmission, basically everything got wholesaled out of this car this week, right down to the tires. Took small tires off, strapped on a set of fresh gumbos there. Gear change to go with it, so now it's got a 456 in the rear. It's a 3214. Got the bias pipe back on the front. If you're a fan of the gold wheels, you're in luck because we brought them back. It's time for a change. Retros are for sale. I think they're already spoken for though. So anyhow, we swapped the wheels, we swapped the motor, we swapped the converter, we swapped the fuel system. Got the fuel cell in the back again, A1000 pushing it. Don't mind the wiring, I ran out of time. So everything's been changed, everything's different. I'm just hoping this works half decent today. Realistically, I think we're looking for like a 960, maybe a 950 pass. 960 something is probably reasonable. I think at like best case scenario, maybe a high 940, worst case, maybe like a mid 970. There's only so much we can do. Just gonna have to let go of the button and find out. Oh hey, in a strange turn of events, I'm flying solo today. So I zip tied you to my roll cage so I can try to get a video. Stand by. So I just noticed timing says 16 degrees and that doesn't seem right. So I'm just gonna double check this quick. Don't want to waste this pass because I may or may not have a decent fuel leak, and there may or may not be a towel zip tied around it. So if this goes good, I probably won't make a ton more today, but we'll see. Oh wow, I was actually smart enough to put a not ridiculous timing number at idle, so that appears to be right. Now see how good of a tuner I am. I call this the staircase of timing. Get at me for your needs. Super cheap. That was a lot better. Made a couple changes there and went down decent. Started to leave pretty good. Started to pick front up and then kind of blew the tires off. Not blew them off, but lost it a little bit. Came back down, but it went a 77 at 137. So we're close. I'm gonna turn the chip down, turn a couple more bars, go from there. But the real story here today is our pal Will has been building a car for 6 years, and it's done and it's here, and it's amazing. It's the most violent, disgusting thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So that was the first test pass Memorial Day weekend. We got back, top of the motor's just covered in oil. And I had that happen when I was at Rock Falls, and I thought the breathers weren't big enough. And I added a -10 because we were using the factory 3/8 breathers on the Holly stuff. Turned out that wasn't the issue. So there's oil everywhere after every single pass, and we're like, whatever, it's this 3K race, we're already here, let's just jump in and see what we can do. We actually did pretty good, went quite a few rounds, I was shocked, but we're like wiping up oil between every round, and the car's not running great. The numbers are all over the place. So anyhow, a little bit of rack racing, and then we called it a day. All right, so let's take a quick break and discuss where the colossal oil leak was coming from. So after every pass you get back, it would be plumb full of oil. The bottom of this runner would be full of oil. It'd be puddled out to here, and then same story on number 7 back here. Same deal, covered in oil underneath, runners got it all over. And I was writing it off to the breathers here. I have this one unhooked right now, we'll get there in a minute. I thought it was coming out of the breathers at first, so I added a -10 adapter to here. Right now I've got the vacuum pump hooked up. We did that just a few days ago. I added this. But anyhow, so there's just a colossal disaster of oil everywhere. We could not figure it out. So we had pressurized the valve covers, and we were looking around trying to see if we could find a leak somewhere. And all of a sudden we hear it just pouring out right about here. Right. So I know you're thinking, you're like, okay, wait. You pressurize the top side, aka let's call it the crankcase side. You've got air coming out of the intake. Seems a little wild. That's what I thought. So we pulled the intake off. So we huffed the intake off, and this is what we find. There's oil everywhere. It's not sealing. So we got two things going. The gaskets are covered in oil, fresh oil, and it's not sealing up. So here's how it works. It's a CID intake, and what's a little bit different, if you've ever had one or you've seen one, is they don't use one hole on each side. So you see there's bolt, not bolt, bolt. Okay, the chassis is really thick. It's fine. You don't need it. They do that so the runner can take a direct shot right to the port, but in turn, they lose the bolt hole here. So if you don't use that bolt hole, you have to do something with the hole. So what we did is we took a 6x1 button head, ground the head flat enough where it would sit below the mating surface, installed it, a little bit of blue Loctite so it wouldn't rattle loose, not that it can go anywhere, but also act as sealant. And then when we reinstalled the manifold, a little bit of sealant on all the intake bolts as well. So now the colossal oil leak is fixed. However, we can't explain why the intake isn't sealing income intake gaskets. So if you ever own one of these, or you thought about owning one, or you've done any amount of research on it, they talk about their 30 thou gaskets that are kind of a must with this intake. Well, what we had was just some standard rec port medic gaskets. These measure actually just a fuzz more than 60 thou, so twice the height of what they're supposed to be. I'm not a machinist. I can't do the math to figure out if it's relevant, the way it sits, the thickness. I don't know, but what I can confidently tell you is that these ones don't seal. So fortunately, Josh had a set of brand new gaskets from CID. So I stole those. I'm trying to replace them, but I can't get a hold of CID for the life of me. I've messaged their business page. I've messaged his personal page. I've called his phone multiple times, but I can't leave a voicemail. So if anybody has a hookup there at CID, let me know, because I just want to buy some intake gaskets. So at that point, new gaskets in, intake's not leaking. We're not leaking oil everywhere. Life's looking pretty good. We only have one more issue to fix, and that would be why these massive tires don't hook the way they should. So I had this really great drawing for you. Unfortunately, my kid came out and drew, he said it's a picture of him, but it looks more like, it kind of looks like Yoda with the ears. But anyhow, so this was our old IC, which was 34.5, 6.5. That's super short. It hits the tire really hard. I always got away with it on the small tire, probably because the small tire could carry wheel speed, unlike the big tire. So then we have our new instant center out here, which is now 52, 5.5. So we made those changes along as well, went back to the track this weekend and tried it again. So changes worked great. Car ran way better. It was like 18 numbers faster, 3 mile an hour better. Our best remains 615 at like 114-ish. The car still won't 60 foot the way I want it to. We're gonna get into that here in a second. Otherwise, basically after 60 foot, the thing just lights and comes to life, and it's a really fun car to drive. But it just won't get out of its way coming off the brake. So what I have here is a log. Here's my sweet pointer. It's an air gun, but it's a pointer. Here's it comes off the brake. It grabs the converter and it just rides the converter for this is 1.42 seconds, which is our 60 foot. Basically the entire time. It almost feels like a turbo car when it gets out of the converter. It just takes off for the moon. The 60 foot, the 142, I know it doesn't have a ton of gear. It's only got 456 and a tall tire, but it has the same starting line ratio that this car's always had, and it's actually 60 footing worse than when I had my 370 in here and a same exact converter, same starting line ratio. So we need to figure out why the motor won't make any power down here, and then it finally comes to life out here. So a couple things. This yellow is air fuel. Disregard this because we're on the brake. You let go of the brake and it gets real lean or real rich for a second, and then it actually gets pretty lean up here. These numbers hover around like you'll get in the 14s actually. Then it calms down when life is good and it rides out about 12.5 the whole way out. So I need to figure that out. We have an inkling that it might be slightly over carbureted on the size. It's a 4500 1050 Dominator carb right now. We have a 950 4150 that I would like to try this week. Okay, so that should get you pretty close to the last 3 weeks of the small issues we've been having. As a whole, I feel like the car's running really well. We're close. I think it's got a little bit more left in it still as far as consistency and ET mile an hour go. So we're gonna make a couple little changes, 4-link carburetor thing. I'm gonna link a video in the description. It's actually a video that just came out yesterday. It's some guys that we raced with talking about a very similar issue, and they actually made a couple back-to-back pulls with a 4500 versus a 4150 on a similar combo. When I say similar combo, I mean a small cubic inch high horsepower motor. Theirs is a little bit more horsepower than us, but it's the same idea. So if you're interested in that, you can go check that video out. Other than that, we're making those changes, go back to the track, see where we're at. To clarify the intake scenario debacle, we bought this as a complete crate motor package. It showed up in a crate, everything on it, intake, carburetor, oil pan, etc. So I usually like to take credit for doing really dumb things. Unfortunately, I can't take credit for that one, but either way it's remedied and we're moving forward. Stand by.